Hello, Carol. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be with you. And could you please tell me about your youngest son?
My youngest son. Well, first I will tell how he is now. My youngest son is growing very fast. He's very active. I'm very proud of it. And compared with what some doctors in the hospital had initially indicated, the problems we were expecting to face are minor, and we overcome them bit by bit. But I think you're more interested to know why I made that comment, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
So I will start at the very beginning. I became dad at a quite a late age.
How old were you?
I was 42, so that's rather late, I would say, to become daddy. This happened after a number of, let's say, miscarriages by my partner. And so we're really looking forward to have Andre, because, I mean, a son, that was always my biggest dream. And so we were very happy when my partner and I heard that she was pregnant. And you know, you go on a regular basis to gynecologist to check on the baby, to check on the progress. And everything went fine. I especially remember the day that the gynecologist says, "Look, here, Carol, there is something you need to see." And I knew immediately it was a son, because I saw something that a girl doesn't have. So far, so good. And in that hospital, because it was IVF, they always suggest that you do a thorough check of the child.
Was it
Of the
private?
fetus.
Yeah, was it private or
Private,
part?
just
Uh-huh,
private. So we did a thorough check of the baby. They did I think they call it 3D scan, or a 4D scan, because you have sound and etc.
Normally, both of them.
Yeah, and we were still very happy. We go there. We thought it is a procedure, just a step. And suddenly I saw the doctor constantly going back for the scan, always looking at the heart, always focusing on the heart. And she was like mumbling something. And when she was finished, she said, "We have a problem." We looked at each other, me and my partner, a problem. And then the doctor said, "I suspect tetralogy of Fallot, pretty sure, and I suspect he has a Down syndrome." So when they say that, when you know, you go in happy, it's like I can only compare it with a hammer that they smack in your face. So we came out, and my partner was crying, and I was actually very angry with the doctor.
Why?
The
Because
way,
of
the
the
way,
bad news
the
or
way she
something
had said
else?
it, the way she had said it. So I went back in, and I literally told her, "How dare you talking to us like that, making first a statement about the heart, while I'm sure you don't know at this moment, and then secondly making that statement about Down syndrome, because there's no indicator whatsoever that could make you conclude in that based on what you have done here." She apologized, and she said, "Actually, you're right. I'm sorry, I should not have said it like that. Most likely it's not Down syndrome. I just said it because this syndrome often comes with the Down syndrome." So this syndrome that she was talking about was tetralogy of Fallot, which means there are 4 deficiencies in the heart. Tetralogy, from Greek. So we knew there were 4 issues with the heart. And our gynecologist had said, you have to be aware if there is 1 deficiency, okay, you can work with it. But if there's more than 1, then you're running in a dangerous area. I mean, then it can become very complicated. So first things first, the hospital immediately suggested to do a puncture. So I think they call it the nip test, to check on all kind of let's call it deficiencies. And I am downstairs in the lab where I need to give the list of checks I would like to have done. And she says, "We'll check for this and for this and for this, for that." I don't know, 6 or 7. And I asked, "Can I see that list?" And I see the whole list. And I said, "Check the whole list." I said, but sir, this will cost you a fortune. I said, I don't care. I said, if this child will have a disability, I want to be 100% sure what it has, so we can make a very well-informed decision.
So she gave you a list on paper?
I asked the list.
You asked for a list.
So they had initially like a kind of a checklist, and I said, do the whole list. So in the meantime, my partner was, they were doing the test with her. And so this was, the whole sequence of events was very strange for me. But she was very friendly.
At the end, I suppose.
She was very friendly throughout, I cannot complain. After that, there was an issue with tetralogy-of-Fallot. So we started looking for good experts. We got some advice from some people. And one of the advices of one of the doctors was, you can go to many doctors, but you must go to that specific doctor. But that specific doctor was very difficult to get in touch with. And so we had decided to go with a number of other doctors as well. So we drive to the doctor in a big town. And we arrive, the checks are done. And by then we already knew that our baby for sure would have XYY. That we knew for sure. In the meantime, they had already confirmed that there was no other disability. So for myself, I had already decided before, even if it is Down syndrome, I want to keep the baby.
What were your emotions at that moment?
I was very angry.
Did you cry? What
But
did
of
you
course,
say?
you're a father to be. You get emotional about the whole thing.
Yeah, but tell me, as a future mother, how did you feel like when the doctor said to you that there is a risk of your son having this and that? What were your thoughts?
We were not actually confronted by a doctor like that. It was more bits and pieces of information that we got. So, but for me, it was very firm. I'm raised Catholic. Because the issue of abortion came up quite quickly, actually.
Who brought it? Who brought it?
The hospital.
The hospital.
And I immediately said, we're not going to discuss that now. I want to know all the facts. So there are a number of, let's say, disabilities on that list that I know that the child would never have a quality of life. But Down syndrome, for me, for example, was an example of, no, this is not a reason to do an abortion. Because of my background, being Catholic, raised in a Catholic environment, but also the ethics that I have for myself, abortion is not in my book. It's something that's very difficult for me. So, by the time we drove to that doctor, we knew that it was XYY, and this means very popular said he's a Superman. Okay, and as we see now, he's a Superman, but then we didn't know those things. We arrive at the doctor, and she does all the scans and etc. And she confirms not a tetralogy, but she confirms 3 symptoms. The 4th one, she says, is doubtful. And she says, based on the deformities that I see, you should go for abortion because this child will not survive.
She said that bluntly to
She
you
said
and
that
your partner.
more or less bluntly, yes. And then she said, and on top of that, don't forget, he has XYY, he will be an extreme female. And I look at her and I said, I'm sorry, but XYY means extreme male. And she corrects me. I said, I'm sorry, but you are wrong. XYY is extreme male. Has nothing to do with female characteristics and etc. And she went looking in her books and then confirmed to us, you're right, I'm sorry. So we drove back. I can only compare it like in a dead wagon, where they carry the dead people in. That was the mood in which we returned from that visit. And in the meantime, we got an appointment with that expert that everyone said, you really must go to that one. So off we go again, driving in our Mark car, because all the news we had got so far was very bad. And we arrive. He's very, very friendly. made us immediately feel very comfortable. He checks, doesn't say anything, just checks. And he says, look, I don't know what the other doctors have said based on what they have said those things, but I've seen many open heart surgeries of young children. And I've seen how, he said it like that, because he spoke to me in French, how Mother Nature fixes things over time. And he said, what I see here, and that was in month 7, what I see here is something I believe Mother Nature will still fix. And whatever is not fixed, we can see what we can do. And that's what I wanted to hear.
And
I thanked him.
Yeah.
I thanked him. And I said, now we're going to wait. And we went another time as well. He said, you will have to come back. Also after birth, we're going to do checks again. But I would keep this. I will not go for abortion. And we didn't go for abortion. The feedback from the hospital was...
Controversial?
Well, no. Our gynecologist, he understood our situation. He said, we need to see how it evolves. He kept on growing very fast. So at a certain moment they had to let the birth start. So when he was born, the first thing, I remember they were informing me he's born. And the first thing I asked was actually, is that heart beating? And they said, everything is fine, the baby is perfect. But he's very big. So at that point, of course, I was very glad that me and my partner, we decided not to do the abortion, because you see, in the end, it turned out well. But on the other hand, it made me also think, what if you're a parent and you're less informed than we were, because we had the connections, we knew where to look and etc. But if you don't have this knowledge, what do you do? And that's a bit the difficult thing with this. Then we had to wait a month, 2 months, when he was born. Then we went again for a full check of the heart. And then he did the check, again didn't say anything, it was the same expert that was recommended before. And then he said, Sir Mom, I never want to see you here again. I thought, is he angry to me for something? And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, this child is perfect. Mother Nature fixed what had to be fixed. And the XYY, you just have to live with it that he's big. And so this was actually very good news. On the other hand, also, XYY is not very well known. So the very few doctors that know what it is, that know what the impact is of XYY. So as a parent, I started checking myself. I'm part of groups of parents with XYY from all over the world.
Yes,
Online group from all over the world. And we share experiences, we share things that we noticed. And you can see often a big match. For example, there were things about fits, anger fits. This is something that we have noticed with our kid as well. We share how things are being solved, and then of course you see the contradiction between European parents and American parents. American parents, the first thing, and we already went to the doctor to find a prescription, medication to calm him down. While when you look at European parents, more like, let's work on maybe things that maybe stress him, to reduce those stress factors. So this is something that we did. I downloaded a book because in the bookshops there was nothing available on that. I downloaded a book specialized on XYY, and there are those lists that I have in my head that we need to be careful for as we progress in time, that we have to look for. For example, learning delay, speech delay, sensory delay. There's lots of things, and we were lucky because due to our work we are in touch with a lot of experts all over. So we had a chance to go with André to the necessary experts already, I think after 1 year.
What experts did you visit in order to consult?
Well, we went to experts in Turkey, specifically on the sensory rehabilitation. they did a great job. And
But
also
you have found them. No one recommended them. You have found them.
we
due
knew
to
them
your
because due to our work,
contacts.
we were in touch with those people. They helped us in that. There were other aspects also that they highlight. For example, the muscle tone, which was rather weak. They said very early on, already before they did the check, let them run as much as possible barefooted outside, so that he can touch rough terrain that we stimulate the feet. And before that, he was also very anxious to touch anything that was dirty or whatever. So there they worked on that as well. Balance they worked on, overall walking and etc. And we can only see that he has improved steadily. But that for us it's a quest.
Yeah.
So he's now going to be 4 years old. We are past, let's say, the main physical aspects are behind us. But now we see there is some speech delay. And I mean, in a few years' time, he will also have to go to regular school. And we need to see what will happen there. For example, now he goes to Montessori because they put a lot of emphasis on sensory aspects. So that's...
And on the individual approach.
Yes.
To each child.
Yes, because I'm pretty sure if you put him in a large group, it will not go well. So he needs individualized support, and this in Montessori you can see that, while in mainstream schools
it's a little bit challenging.
too many kids, and
yes.
I mean, it's not the fault of the teachers, just it's not possible to do an individualized approach. So I think this is something that we'll need to follow over the years. But again, we don't have a handbook. We don't have any guidance that says this will be the next. We have to find out bit by bit by bit.
On your own.
Yes,
almost.
because there's very limited knowledge about XYY. For example, even today they still refer to research, botched research. What do I mean? This is research that was actually based on wrong data, wrongly collected data, in which they still collect, in which they still connect XYY with criminal behavior, which is totally not the case. Totally not the case. But still you see this reference. Till, I think till the mid-80s, every child with XYY, for example, in the Nordic countries, was aborted. That means actually that, and steadily you get to know more kids, more families that have XYY kids, and you see that these kids grow up normally. Okay, everyone has his challenges, and they have their challenges. There are severe cases, there are less severe cases. I would say we are in a less severe case.
Yeah.
But you see that all these individuals, they grow up to become an individual on their own. So, looking back at the whole story, it was the fact that, in my opinion, the people that were there did not understand what it was. They don't understand the consequence. And the fact that I heard the word abortion immediately in anything that was brought up, I got allergic to that, absolutely allergic. One of the other characteristics, social services popped up on the second day that he was born.
In the hospital?
Yes, because apparently we had a number of parameters: unmarried, disability, there were a number of parameters.
Yeah, and you automatically
I was a
go
foreigner.
under the risk group.
Exactly, and I was a foreigner, and immediately the list went on. And so these two ladies, probably very nice ladies, came from social services, and the nurse saw me cooking, and they were asking questions, and at one point I said, they asked me actually, will be able to take good care of this kid? And I said, no, I will treat this kid very badly, I will throw me around and etc. And she was looking at me.
That?
Yeah,
I
was furious. And they were looking at me, and then the nurse said, he does not mean that, he's just very upset that you're even here, because he cannot understand. But
the nurse was present during the interview.
That nurse was the main nurse was there. I remember that she was standing behind them, and she saw me. I got a tomato head, so that means I was very angry.
Yeah.
But those are the little bit the difficult things. If you're confronted with disability, of your child with disability, I tend to believe that they do not know enough information to guide you. For example, the lady who did the 4D scan, she bluntly said to me, look, this is one of the weaknesses in my job. Sometimes I have to bring the bad news and I cannot support the parents though because I don't know anything about it. I said there are no support groups, nothing. When we went to that doctor, we passed a big corridor. And that corridor, I think there were 20 to 30, maybe 40 young women, all with babies, and all of them had Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So these were all young mothers.
And your pregnant woman, your pregnant partner saw that? She was under
afterwards,
stress?
but there was no stress. That it was just, it pointed out to us that there are many parents that are faced with a situation, probably did not have the financial means even to do prenatal checks. That's what they told me, because they come from isolated areas.
Yeah.
Then being confronted with a child with Down syndrome, which has that also, because that's one of the characteristics, that they can have heart deficiencies. So this was confronting, and it became clear to me that there is actually no support for that. So you have to be lucky.
And you remember this like it was yesterday, although it happened almost 4
it's
years ago.
Yeah, because it's like a movie that I play every now and then. Because I'm very happy how it ended, but at the same time you start thinking, okay, we were in a position that we had all the connections, but for those that do not have the connections, are confronted with this, what do you do? And the same, okay, it may sound strange, but when I'm sometimes very stressed, I have not a nightmare, I have dreams in which I see my son playing with another son, and I understand from the dream it's my son, that son has Down syndrome. They're playing together, and they're having fun and etc. So for me, that became more and more a stimulator to also talk with parents. If you start reporting every child that has deficiencies, the expert that actually told us I would keep the child, Mother Nature would do it. He told me the last time I saw him, he said, look, you should never forget, not one single person is born perfect. Every person has a deficiency. If we start killing off everyone who has a deficiency, there won't be many people left.
This is very strong message. Now you are citating actually the human words that he said to you, not the medical information that he gave to you. So
when you look at that expert, he was not emotional, but he was
human.
Yeah, human in the way that he approached things. The first lady who brought us the first bad news did it very bad, but apologized. Because she understood also from the way, and I was very angry. I think she was a bit afraid of me as well. But she apologized and she bluntly told me, I am not trained, I don't know enough about these things to bring the bad news, and unfortunately I need to bring the bad news.
Every now and then, yes.
So we now have to see for the years to come what has to be done, what extra steps we need to make, but I'm pretty sure everything will end.
Karel, thank you for being so sincere and telling us your real story in such a sincere and emotional way. Do you have anything to say to the future parents like me who perhaps will face similar challenges or something else? What we need to remember when we listen to the doctors saying this and that, bad news, good news?
Well, first of all, you're with two people, so husband, wife, partners, or whatever the combination is. You are with two people, and the two of you must be on the same line. You both need to agree, what if? And we had never discussed that what if. Because it's maybe also it's maybe a bad or the wrong point to start from. But I think this is something that a couple must discuss. What if? And for me, the what if, my boundary was very far. What do I mean? I had put in my head a number of specific cases where I said, this I will never do to any child, born or unborn. My partner had a different view on that. And I always said, as long as you do not agree, it will not happen. So in the end, we did not have to make that decision, but I think this is very important that both partners agree on what if. And I think secondly, and unfortunately I cannot do that a lot, not to forget your baby is only baby for a few months, and after that he or she grows, and you should not miss that. And I've missed many of those months because I'm traveling like mad, for business, not for pleasure. But this is something, yes, that for example, I have thousands of pictures of our son. And every now and then I go through those pictures and I say, I forgot this period. And now, because of the situation with COVID, we are in situations we are more at home. Actually, I'm constantly at home at the moment, so working at home. And he's there, you make that connection, and he is speeding up in language as well now. Because I always speak English, so he picks up English as well. I think this is very important as a parent. Whether a child has disability or not, you need to be there, you need to be able to connect with the child, to see it grow, and the child also to see you busy with the child. And sometimes it's very difficult. I'm glad that I have a partner who takes very good care of our child. But this is something that, yes, you really need to consider when you're a parent.
And if you can now say something to the doctors you've been in touch with during the pregnancy period, what you will say to them?
Well, none of them was badly intended. None of them. Some of them realized that the way they did it could have been different.
Yeah.
But I would say the majority in the end that we got in touch with, also during the labor and etc., were actually all very understanding and willing to help, and they understood our position as well. So they didn't, it was not, I mean, for example, that expert that we went to, he was not the one saying this or that. No, he said, look, in my experience, this will end well, but you have a decision to make. And in my experience, this will end well. So this is, I think, it's not what I wanted to hear. Well, yes, I wanted to hear someone who said, guys, give it a try. Try it. And someone who says this can be fixed. Because
to give hope.
To give hope.
And different perspective.
And a different perspective. Because we had 3 doctors that actually said abort. And yeah, as I said, it doesn't exist in my language, figure of speech. My dictionary, when I hear abort, I block. I don't want to hear it. So that was my experience.
Thank you very much, Karel, for being with us. Thank you for your story, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, and also my pleasure.
Thank you.